If you are planning a trip to Orlando and have absolutely no idea how much spending money you need, then same. I spent a long time researching exactly how much things cost so I could do an estimate of how much spending money you really need for a trip there. We are traveling there in a couple of weeks as a family of 6, and I'm going to share with you all of the numbers and estimates that we have put together in our budget for our upcoming trip so you can kind of gauge how much it might cost you too. Hi, my name is Jess. I'm a 36-year-old working mum of 4. We are going on our dream family holiday to Orlando. Now, I promise you not all of my content is normally Orlando based, Disney themed. However, this is such a significant trip for us, so I'm talking about it a lot. And when I was doing loads of research, I couldn't quite find lots of content like this. Like, there's some out there, but I really wanted to get kind of hardcore costs of what people are spending. If you haven't seen already, I'll link it here. There is a video that I've talked about exactly how much this trip has cost us, looking at things like flights and villas and car hire and all those things that you need. But I didn't touch on spending money, and that plays quite a big part because, of course, when you get there, you have to eat and drink and enjoy. And how much does all of that cost? And listen, when I tell you I researched, I think I've spent more than 3 weeks total researching, just like the hours of 3 weeks, and then the whole holiday is going to be. Before I get into the figures, and of course the spreadsheet, because everything is in a spreadsheet, let me give you some context as to how I came up with some of these figures and where they came from. So the first thing I did was wrote an itinerary, right? And I think most people I know who travel to Orlando have some sort of rough idea of what they want to do, but writing out the itinerary really helped plan and look at like what is it we're actually going to be doing, so that I could kind of then go backwards and go, right, how much is that actually going to cost? The other thing is making sure I looked at the hidden cost behind things. So I've obviously got park tickets, but that doesn't include car parking. And so things like that, I wanted to make sure once I had the itinerary, I thought, right, okay, we're going to this park for 10 days. How much does the parking cost? Then I know we need 10 lots of parking for this amount of money. We're going here, we want to do this, we want to go to Gatorland, how much do the tickets cost, etc. So that itinerary was kind of the first stop in really understanding what are we going to be doing on this trip, and then working out how much that is going to cost us. The second thing I did was, based on that, I did get a VPN so that I could look at US costs, and downloaded a bunch of like menus with costs from restaurants and places, and looked at things like Gatorland and all of these things that we wanted to do so that I could get accurate costings. That was super helpful because it meant that I was getting exact figures and then could work from there. So for example, looking at the menu for Olive Garden, because no doubt we are going to go there and eat, and then going, right, if we went there and we sat down, what would everybody probably order? How much does that total cost look like? And then making sure I include things for tipping and there's enough for that, and then working backwards from there. And then the next thing, I've watched so much content that people put out. There were some great creators doing some really helpful videos, like what I spent in a day at Disney, what I spent in a day at Universal, or things that I did for free, etc. And so watching a lot of that content and then getting an idea of how much things cost so that I could have an estimate was super helpful. Now, do correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe you don't pay tax on food in Florida. So most of the costs that I was seeing were going to be the costs that we need, but I have kind of added like a 10% gauge on most things to kind of give us a bit of a buffer. Now, I know for most people this seems really extra, but for me it was really important that I had a realistic idea of how much it was actually going to cost, because a few things, I didn't want to get caught out. I didn't want to get there and then be like, we can't do half the things that we want to do because we just completely underestimated how much it was going to be. And this is like a real dream trip for us, so I wanted it to be a yes trip as much as that was possible. I wanted to know how much those yeses were going to cost me. So making sure I had all this information was super helpful. The other thing, I really wanted to avoid using our credit cards. Now, I do use our Amex to pay for most things, but then I pay it off every week so that I don't have a bill and I don't have any interest. What I didn't want to do was then go, right, we can just tap, and then I've only saved £1,000 and actually my bill is £3,000. And then one, having to pay interest, and two, having that credit card debt. I just didn't want to do that. Now look, however you're budgeting for your holiday, however you manage your money is up to you. This was just what I would feel comfortable with, and I wanted to make sure that we had enough cash, not literal cash, but enough money in the bank to cover the things that we wanted to do, and had an idea of how much we needed to save, because I feel like it can be a bit finger in the air, and I needed to have that mind of like, right, that's the goal of money I need, this is how much I need. That is what really helped kind of get an idea. Now, I did do something really extra. Like, I was trying to explain to my friend the other day, and she was like, I don't know if this is completely like unhinged or genius or maybe both, but I tiered the holiday. So Basically what I did is I've got a bronze tier, a silver tier and a gold tier of how much money we need to save. Now the bronze tier is like bronze holiday, all the essentials that we need, things that we definitely want to do, parking, food, you know, treats in the shop. How much is that going to be? That is like the baseline of the minimum amount of money that we need when we go. Silver tier is like, okay, so we go out a few more times, we increase the shopping budget a little bit, treats that we can have, maybe we have a couple more ice creams than we would plan to have, that sort of thing. That's silver tier. That then came with an additional cost, but was going to be on top of, that's how much we needed to save. And then gold tier was like, we're going to do everything that we want to do when we're there. We're not going to say no. I mean, within reason, obviously. But we're going to basically have this yes holiday that we really, really want. Go out as much as we can. How much is that going to be? That is the kind of the goal we want to get to. But we knew what we really needed. I know that is so extra, but it was really, really helpful for me because it also meant that I didn't want to beat myself up. If there were things that we, you know, couldn't quite save or we couldn't quite reach that gold tier holiday, I still knew we were going to do things that we really wanted to do, and there were some things that we could let go of or not really like mind missing. It was just going to be a nice to do. So a prime example I can give you is we really want to go to Gatorland, so that went into our silver tier. At Gatorland they have a zip line which you can do over the gator pond, which is super cool. We wanted to do it, but it was like, that's going to go in the gold tier. We're going to go because we really want to go. If we can save up that extra money, then we can do that extra thing that we want to do when we also get there. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to stop waffling and get into the figures because I feel like the spreadsheet will give you so much more context and it will be so much more easy for you to understand the madness that I am trying to explain. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I've done this slightly differently to the other video. I've made myself small so that you can see the whole spreadsheet. It should be all over everywhere now, so you should be able to see it. So let's talk about it. Now you can see on the spreadsheet what I mean. I've got bronze over here and then silver and then gold. And then I've kind of split the items and then the category. Now the reason why I've done the category is because down here I've got a running total of how much each of those categories are actually going to cost us. So you can see split out roughly what that might look like. Again, it's really helpful for you because if you're not going to do any days out or you're going for less time, you can kind of roughly work out what that looks like. And then things like travel are obviously going to be essential for us, so it just made it easier for me to understand what the bare minimum was that we were going to need. Let's get into it. Now, I have got the figures open on another spreadsheet here so that I can go through them as we talk, but let's get into these figures. So I've got the running totals. You'll have the bronze total here as we get through to it, and then the silver, etc. And then we'll have the complete total at the bottom. Now, I've done price, which for some things are per day or per unit or whatever, and then the quantity of how many times we might need that thing. Food shopping, right? The most important thing. We are staying in a villa which does have a kitchen and we have paid extra for the barbecue, but we need groceries. I'm also planning on doing like pack up lunches for the parks and snacks. My kids will eat 7,000 gajillion snacks, so I want to make sure we have enough money for that. So I looked at I watched this sort of content anyway around like grocery shops and grocery hauls, so I could get a rough idea of how much it would cost. I also did, and this is probably so extra, but honestly it was so helpful, when I was on my VPN for the US, I went onto Walmart and basically did an online food shop as if I was going to be there so that I could see how much the total basket would be. When I tell you I've gone in on trying to make sure these figures are accurate, I have gone in. So I worked out that roughly we're going to need about £300, which is about $400 per week. We might need a little bit less than that. I have overestimated everything, and we're also staying with friends, so we'll probably split costs of things like drinks and communal things like milk and coffee and stuff. But for the most part, that is what I've done. So for £300 per week, we're going to need 3 weeks of that, and it comes to a total of £900. Now, travel, I've put on here fuel. Now, apparently fuel is fairly well priced over in the US. I did roughly look at our itinerary so I could gauge the mileage of how many miles we'd be doing, so that I could then work out how much petrol we'd need. This is like, saying it out loud, I'm like, this is really unhinged, but I wanted to make sure we had the money and we could afford it and it made sense. And I think we forget, spending money is such a, not a hidden cost, but I feel like we forget about some of the things we have to pay for. And I didn't want to go into this really naively, and things like fuel and parking and just those little things that we just sometimes don't think about. And then we get there, and if you're anything like me, you get on holiday and you're like, free money, woo, Like, I feel like it's like fake money. Like, I lose the plot the second I walk into the airport. And so I wanted to make sure that I had it together with this. So I've roughly estimated about £100, which is about $140 per week on fuel. And so I do this, 3, and then we've got £300. So you can see where we're going with this. Now, gift shop purchases. For some people, they're like, that's not an essential, but I'm not traveling all that way and saying no completely to the kids. Like, I really wanted to make sure that they got something. Us, making sure that they had a treat or a little bit of spending money was really important. So I worked out that $50 was about £37, and we obviously have 4 children, so that's £148, and they'd get $50 each to spend in the gift shop or in a shop when we're at the parks or when they want to do something. Parking, because again, I feel like this is one that people don't think about. Parking, I believe, is $35 per day at the parks, which is, for the amount you pay for the tickets, I'm a little bit horrified by that. Now, I did check because one of our children has additional needs and does actually have a disabled badge, and I looked at if that would have an impact. Now, it has an impact on where you park, but not how much you spend. It is not like the UK at all. So I made sure that we roughly knew how much that would be. So I've budgeted here £30 for 14 days. Now, will we go for 14 days? I don't know, but I wanted to overestimate. We have got 14-day Universal tickets, and we will then be also going to the Disney parks for 2 days. So we technically have 16 days worth of park tickets. But whether we use all of them, I don't know. So I thought 14 was probably about right, because no doubt there'll be villa days, shopping days, chill days in between. So we're looking at £420 just on parking, which madness. But again, I would not have thought it would be that much. I feel like most of us would just be like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, you just don't think it's going to be that much. But that's £420. And can you imagine if you hadn't estimated that, hadn't thought about that cost, got there, and then that is how much you've got to spend on top of what you've budgeted? It's so much money. So £420, which is about $35. Now, I have overestimated that because I think it's $35. Technically, it's about £26 or £7, but a few people mentioned it can be more on peak days, and I just wanted to make sure we had enough. So there we are. Park treats and snacks. Now, this is things like an ice cream, a butter beer, a Mickey shaped beignet, because Lord knows I'm going to be eating those. And so I've really kept this budget small, and I think it's probably too small. But when we were looking at the bronze budget, this was going to be our like really tight budget when we're there, but still saying yes to stuff. And so I've done $50 a day for 14 days in the parks, which just, I know it's not going to stretch that much, but the bronze budget was around being quite tight and like limited and like the bare minimum that we might need. And so this works out about £37, 14 times 14 days, so £518 in total. Now, we might spend $100 on one day and nothing another day, but just to spread it out for the purposes of this and how I estimated it, that is what made sense in my head. Now, the last thing, and probably the biggest expense, will be eating out. Now, I looked at restaurants, I got costs, and for the most part, any sort of quick service dining, so like a Chick-fil-A, a Burger King, a McDonald's, that sort of vibe, we were looking at about $90 to $100 for all of us, which is roughly about £75. And then for like a sit down nicer meal at a proper restaurant, we're probably looking at about $150 to $190, which is about £150. So I kind of averaged it out in its entirety to £100 per meal, or like £100 per time we went out. Of course, we are a family of 6, 2 adults and 4 children. Now, Sophia's 13, Isabella will be 8, JJ will be 6, Theo will be 4. The boys will share stuff, like they're not going to eat huge portions between them. In fact, when me and Sophia went to New York, we shared meals all the time because the portions were so big. So that is kind of how I got there. But what I wanted to do was limit how many times we went out and cook more in the villa and stuff, which is why the food budget is higher, and then the eating out budget sits here. So I estimated about £100 and going out 12 times, which is like 3 or 4 times a week for the 3-week duration, and then cooking all the other meals in the villa. So in total, the bare minimum money that we needed to save on holiday to do this came to £3,486, which is, I think, about just over $4,000 and about just over £1,000 per week. So far, we've spent £2,100 on food and drink, £148 on shopping, nothing on days out, so this doesn't include doing any extra things or extra activities outside of the parks that we've already bought, and that comes into our like hard costs, holiday costs. £518 on treats and extras, and then £720 on travel. So that is where we are at so far. Let's move on to silver tier and the extras that I've kind of worked out here. So Gatorland, we are obsessed with Gatorland, and really in hindsight it should be in the bronze because I feel like it's a non-negotiable for us, but also we were trying to be realistic about what we could afford to do. And so Gatorland, I honestly, me, Bella, have watched all the vlogs, that it just looks incredible. So we had a look at that, and this comes to a total of £179. I think it's about $240 for all of us. So that's a ticket for all of us to go for the day. Now I did get the upgraded ticket, which included things like the gator food, and you can like feed some of the animals and stuff, because if we were gonna go, we were gonna make sure it was like exactly what we wanted to do. So that is what I've done. Now I didn't include the zip line, that is in the gold budget, so you'll see that in a minute, but just tickets to go for the day, we've included that, and the parking was free, so that is how much it's going to be. Now, eating out, if we did manage to save a bit more money in silver tier, we would extend either the number of times we went out or the places that we went to, and we'd go to places that maybe were a little bit more expensive, or just go out more often. So again, sticking to £100 that we've kind of estimated per occasion, I would be looking at increasing that by £400 or another 4 occasions, or just like stretching the budget out further. Now, of course, like we might not do £100, it might actually cost us $50 to get a couple of pizzas. It might be cheaper, but ultimately you're kind of gauging what I mean, and this all makes sense. I hope this makes sense, and this is not just like, this is me totally trying to brain dump the craziness that goes on in my head. Now, next up in the silver budget would be adding in some sort of shopping budget. So going to Target, going to the outlets and buying some stuff. Now, there are actually a few things the kids need, so a few trainers and stuff that are much cheaper. I love trainers as well, so does Trevor. So we wanted to create space that if we could save up a bit more, then this is what it would allow us to do. So we looked at about £300 budget, which obviously is a total budget for us to kind of just have spending money for shopping, clothes, beauty, whatever that might be. That is how much we would look at. I think that works out about $400. So it's about $400, which again, I feel like is okay. This is just for everyone would probably be able to get something for this, and we would just get some nice things that we could bring home. Now, park treats and snacks and the gift shop purchases, this isn't adding them in because we've already got them in, but what I have put on the silver budget is increasing those budgets to something a bit more, so we've got more to spend. So I know this sounds a bit confusing, but basically I worked it out at, particularly with the gift shop purchases, it was a little bit easier to work out. I would increase that $50 each kid would get, and they'd get $75 instead, which worked out about £19 extra. So it was 19 on 4 occasions. And then I know I'm going back up, but for the park treats and snacks, it was kind of adding just a few more like occasions that we could buy stuff and increasing that budget. Be £37, again that's another $50 on another 6 occasions. So I kind of just roughly worked out that it would basically mean we'd have a few more $100 that we could spend. Some of you are probably like, I don't know how you've calculated all of this, Jess, but okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So that total silver budget, that extra tier of extra things that we would want, comes to a total of £1,177, bringing the total spending money we would need if we wanted to kind of upgrade to silver tier, £4,663. I again just am like, that's so much money, that, and I know it is. And then when I look at it broken down, I'm like, it also doesn't seem that much when you're spending it and breaking it down into each section over the 3-week period. But this is us just kind of putting it all out there and making it really crystal clear. So now what we've spent so far in categories, because obviously that's changed, is food and drink has now gone up to £2,500. Shopping is now £524. Days out is now £179. Treats and extras is £740, and then travel is £720 still. So now we're looking at a slightly different makeup of each of those categories, but that running total. Now the gold tier. This is the like, we're going to do everything we really want to do. I did actually, when I first did this, have a platinum tier as well, but it only really included Discovery Cove, and we've since decided we're not sure we're going to do it, so I've kind of taken it off. But this is like gold tier, everything we want, We're doing it, and we're doing it big. Now, I haven't said this so far in the video yet, but I want to make it really crystal clear that this is what I mean when this is big for us as a family. These are things that we really enjoy. You might not want to do half of this. You could do this on a third of the money, or you might be spending triple the money. It's completely up to you. But for us, this is what dream holiday and things looks like. So the gold tier, let's get into it. Weirdly, at this point, because we'd be eating out more, because our budget would increase, our food budget at that beginning bit would go down and we'd need slightly less. Now, we originally obviously put £300 a week, which is $400 for our food shop. But when I re-looked at it, I thought, I don't think we're going to need that much if we're eating out more, because if we're eating out more, we're going to be eating in less. So I actually changed that budget to $300 a week. So weirdly, the gold budget goes down in food shop, but up in restaurants, if you know what I mean. So we're looking at about £80 less per week, and on 3 weeks. So that works out, oh, I'm missing a formula here. Looking at less, deducting £240 from our actual total, which I know seems ridiculous, but it makes sense because here we're going to be spending more. If we are able to afford to go out more, again, that same £100 would go out for more occasions, maybe going to different places, then I would be looking at increasing that on 6 more occasions, which means in total, I think that works out, we'd basically be eating out like 5 to 6 times a week, pretty much all week, which is why we need less food shopping money, and that would add on another £600. Shopping budget would increase this by £200, so we would have a total of £500 spending money instead of that £300, and that would just be a one-off. I'm not too sure about this one because I feel like we're not going there to shop, but it would be nice to get some stuff if we could. But I also am trying to be much better at not over consuming stuff for the sake of it. Now, I do really love the EOS products, and I have still some left from New York, so I'm like, I don't need to rebuy them for the sake of rebuying them because we're there. So I'm trying to be a bit more mindful. So we might not spend all of that, but I just wanted us to be in a position, if we wanted to, we could buy that extra pair of trainers for one of the kids, or the next size up if we wanted to maybe put them down for the kids for a bit later, that sort of stuff. Now, this is a bit of an extra for us on gold tier. We are going to Epic Universe, and they have these like Mario super power bands, or what they call power up bands, and they are $40 each, but it unlocks some games and things that you can do in the parks. Now, the kids didn't really know about them, and then we watched a vlog on YouTube and someone was talking about them, and it just looked so fun. So we were like, fine, we can obviously experience the park and have an incredible time without them. Like, not everybody buys them, but if we wanted to level it up and really kind of go all out, then we would do that. Now, we would just buy them for the kids, and I've put £35 because they're about $40, and we would only buy 4 of them. Although deep down I'm like, I would probably want one, but no doubt I will share one with JJ because he might not understand the concept. We're going to see. And then Trevor will share with Theo, and then the girls will have one for themselves each. So we're adding that into the mix as well to really like level up that experience at Epic Universe. I talked about the zip line at Gatorland. We saw this on a vlog and it just looked so cool. The boys are too little to do it, so it would only be for me, Trevor and the girls to do this together. We have got friends who will be coming with us, so they'll be able to hang out with the boys, or me and Trevor will do like a parent swap, so I'll do it with Sophia, he'll do it with Bella, or vice versa. And when we looked, this was £59. I think it worked out $69. It was £59 when I translated it into GBP, and obviously 4 times, so that comes to £236 extra. Now, we could probably do with not doing the zip line, or when we get there I might just get the girls to do it if we can't quite reach that budget. But if we wanted to do it and we all wanted to do something that we kind of seen and we're excited by, then that is how much it would cost us. Now, next up, again, increasing that budget for treats and snacks, and so I'd go from that £50 a day budget all the way up to £150 per day, which again sounds ridiculous, but that would be really going like we can try everything that we want to try. If someone wants an extra ice cream or an extra bucket of popcorn, we don't have to be like, oh, we've had popcorn for the day, that's it. And it's okay to say that, by the way. It's okay to not go extra and like get stuff for the sake of it. But again, looking at the holiday, wanting to make sure it was that thing that where we could just say yes and have a yes day, this is what that looked like. Now, to up the budget to get it from what we've currently budgeted in the silver and bronze up to gold tier, it was an extra £800, so I kind of just worked it out like that. Another £58 on 14 days, and that was the extra £812. So in total, that amount that we've now saved from the silver, the bronze and the gold would work out to $150 per day in the parks. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the very last thing is gift shop purchases. So I would increase this from the original $50 per child to $75. They'd get $100 each, which is another £18 across the four of them, or 4 times, which is another £72, which would give them each $100 to spend at the gift shops. Now that brings the total budget for like gold extra another £1,820, meaning the total gold ultimate spending for the holiday, it would be £6,483. And then just to run back on the category totals, that would look like £2,860 on food and drink, £796 on shopping, £415 on days out, £1,692 on treats and extras and all those goodies, and then £720 because those the kind of fixed essential costs on travel, bring it to a total of £6,483. Now, that again is a lot of money. I know spending is so subjective, because for some people they're like, I would just spend that on food, and other people are like, I would spend a quarter of that, and that's okay. But this is the holiday that we have curated for us and our family. That is how much it would be. I don't know if you think that that's loads, or you're like, I've underestimated it. I can't think, and I'm trying to hopefully think I've covered everything. I can't think of anything that I've missed off, or that we would be spending quite significantly on that I haven't thought about. Now, I did think of like, we're gonna have beach days and stuff like that. I've bought a lot of the stuff that we need for that stuff, like beach toys and all of that stuff we actually have at home that we're going to be taking with us. Have I covered everything? Is there a hidden cost that I haven't thought about? If you think there is, please, 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 please let me know. I do not want to be like caught out when we get there. But also, has this been helpful, and does this give you food for thought when you are trying to budget? Now, just looking at that amount of money is like crazy. So far, completely transparently, we are at the top end of silver, bottom end of gold tier when it comes to how much we've saved so far, and we've only got a couple of weeks left. And we did get paid this weekend, so I just need to update our budgets and get that all in line, and then hopefully we should kind of be in that gold tier area, not quite at the top, but kind of where we want to be. Trevor has managed to pick up a couple of extra shifts, and we do also get paid in March while we're away. So he's been trying to do a few more overtime shifts so that in our March pay, maybe there's a bit of extra money. And I picked up a couple of extra shifts at the pub to try and see if I'd get them in time as well. So when I get paid from that, it should be in time in that March pay. So we should be able to get to that top end. Again, though, I don't know if we're actually going to spend that much. I think we'll probably be a bit more savvy on food, because we have got the villa and we are with friends. The likelihood is that we will cook quite a lot, have barbecues and stuff. So this is all just estimate at the moment, but again, it's really important to me that we are prepared for what that might look like, so that we know. Now, what I will do is when I get back from Florida is I'm going to do a side-by-side on how much we've budgeted in this video and what the actual receipts from the trip say, because I think that's going to be even more helpful when there's an accurate how much we spent. And I'll be interested to see, do I rein it in the gift shop? Do I go crazy in Walmart? Like, do we manage to save loads on groceries and end up doing something slightly different? Or do I just completely lose the plot and and spend all the money and use my credit card? Like, what is it going to be? Because at this point, I don't know. I'm trying to be strict, I'm trying to be prepared, I'm trying to be organised, because they're all the things that I can do and can control, but we shall see. And no matter what we do and how we do it, it is going to be magical, whether it's bronze, silver or gold, whether we make the money or we don't, whether we save the money or we don't. We're all going to be together for 3 weeks in what is supposed to be the most magical place on earth. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Are we probably going to get stressed? Yes. But are we all together, and are we doing something that we've dreamed of? Yes. And so no matter what we do, we're going to have the most incredible time. But I just wanted to share this in the essence of transparency, but also in the hope that it helps somebody else estimate, because I really struggled with that, and I thought I could not have put my brain through all of this research for me to not share it with everybody else. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Come back when we get back for that comparison. I'm going to put a little column in there about what we actually spent and if it aligns at all with this budget. And again, please do share any hints, tips, ideas, things I've missed, or whatever you can down in the comments below. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our uploads. The vlogs are going to be coming so soon. I honestly I can't. I think I've got a packing video that I'm going to record and a few other bits before we go, and then that's it. I was even looking at the day, I was like, oh my gosh, I've only got like 4 or 5 YouTube uploads before we go. Like everything now in the run up is, we've only got this many things left, or we've only got this many times, we've got 1 payday left, or 3 of these, or 1 of these. I can't wait. So again, thank you so much for your support. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you for being with me and sticking along on this journey and getting this far in the video. If you have, I am forever grateful and appreciate you. Have an incredible week, an incredible blessed day, and I will see you soon. Bye.